Welcome to part 2 of the healing series, Creating Safe Spaces in Education. My name is Brittany Patrick, and I'll be your host and panel moderator for the evening. Today's event has been organized by Wholistic-ally, which is led by a group of 4 young Black professionals who are taking action to heal and strengthen relationships within the Black community. Today's conversation is grounded in the 4 pillars of Wholistic-ally, which is heal self, heal the family, and heal the community. Jasmine and Ashley are moderating the chat for us today. We look forward to hearing what you have to say as an attendee in this conversation, and you can type comments and questions into the chat. During the final 10 minutes of the panel, we'll be answering your questions and possibly discussing your comments as well. If you're tuned in right now, let it be clear that you are a part of this conversation, and we'd love for you to drop your location right now in the chat. Shout out to the DMV area, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to see where you're at. I see Maryland. Welcome, Ashley. Maryland, DC, okay. Hey, twin. Nola, Northern VA. Welcome, Houston, Texas. We love to see it. Alrighty, so we want you guys to feel comfortable sharing your thoughts and asking questions, bringing up concerns. This is a community conversation. We're gonna go ahead and get started, but before I introduce our panel, we're going to engage in a very brief grounding activity to redirect our thoughts to this concept of safety. So I want you to take 10 seconds to visualize a place where you feel safest. This might be your home, a family member's home. It could be a place in nature. I also want you to think about or write down people who make you feel safe. And what is it about these people that make you feel safe? Think about that. Keep this feeling and definition in mind as we discuss safe spaces for children in our communities today. Because the reality is we cannot pour from an empty cup, y'all. And to create safe spaces for our children and youth, we have to show up as adults who our youth can see and identify with as safe. But first, we have to internalize what safety is to us. So let's go ahead and get started. We've got a panel of highly skilled and passionate educators. They're all at different walks in their journeys, but the one commonality that we all have is our passion to serve Black and Brown children. And so I'm going to go ahead and introduce them. I'm first going to introduce Tanoy Jones, who is a licensed counselor. She specializes in family relationships and helping individuals cope with trauma to reach holistic goals. Tanoy is also the owner of Soul Conscious. Davario Hawkins is a passionate special education leader, educator, and behavior specialist with over 10 years of experience. This is one of my homeboys for sure in the game, in the special education game. And so we'd love to welcome Davario Hawkins. Brandy Caldwell is a Myra Craft transitional year alumna and a first-year relay resident teacher with KIPP Charter Schools in Houston, Texas. I don't want to call Brandy one of my babies because she is not a baby anymore, but she is one of the students who inspired me to get into the classroom, and it's been beautiful to watch her journey from a student to a classroom teacher. So welcome, Brandy, and thanks for joining our panel today. Christopher Akambua, in his 13th year as an educator, he has spent the last 13 years supporting students with special needs, specifically those with severe, what we consider severe and emotional behavioral challenges. He's currently building a nonprofit geared towards guiding Black children into the career field of gaming. So welcome, Mr. Akambua. Thank you for joining us. And last but surely not least is my sorority sister, my line sister, Tracy Battle. She is in her 10th year in education, and she's currently serving as a director of student support at Capitol High School in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Welcome, Miss Battle. Welcome, Tracy. It's a joy to have you all on the panel today. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Tracy, I'd actually like to start with you, and then we'll just go down the panel with you guys kind of answering some of these questions. Again, if you are attending, we ask that you engage in this conversation as well. If you have questions, put them in the chat, or if you just have something to add to the conversation, you are welcome. So I want to start with you, Tracy. How would you describe the state of education and community for Black children right now? And what is driving your commitment to serve Black students?
Well, thank you so much for having me today, BJ, Brittany, and welcome to all the panelists who are here and all the attendees just listening. So how would I describe the state of Black children right now? I would honestly say, because of COVID, a lot of schools have been channeling their thoughts and their focus on social emotional learning, creating trauma sensitive culture and restorative justice. So I do feel like it has become better than what it was. However, there's still some gaps because it's not just about what we can do for kids, but then we also think about, like, as adults, how do we check our bias and how do we not perpetuate the white supremacy culture in these classrooms with our students? Because, you know, like I tell my staff, if you went to any school in the United States, you perpetuate white supremacy culture just unconsciously. It's what you've been taught your entire life. And so we have to break those barriers down. And once you break those barriers down within ourselves, then we can essentially be able to pour into kids. And the second question was why? My why, I believe.
Yeah, this is your why.
So it's actually crazy that you asked me that, because when people ask me my why, I return and say, like, but why not? Right. And so, you know, as an administrator, as a coach, as a support system, I am the administrator that I needed when I was younger. I've committed my last 10 years of my life within education to specifically focus and study and implement restorative justice into schools. I essentially marry restorative justice to social emotional learning, which has birthed a trauma sensitive culture, right? I think they all go hand in hand. They're all a family or all a tribe. And so, you know, this is like my commitment to Black children, but more importantly, like my debt that I pay my creator for allowing me to be here on the earth, right? I have to pay my debt to society. And I feel like, as a Black woman, as a representation for Black kids, I need to show them that not only you can be young and relatable, but you can be, you know, about your business and make things happen. And specifically for my kids, the legal way. And so I always say, why not? Like, why not the Black child? You know, why not me? Who am I not to serve? And so I kind of take those pieces and bring those pieces to work every single day.
That's a word. And I see Kendra says in the chat, hashtag it be your own people. We do internalize that white supremacy and we don't even realize it. Does anybody else want to make comment on that? How would you describe the state of education for Black children right now? And just what is your why for engaging in this work?
So for me, I think that the state of education in the Black community is in a very vulnerable place right now. Just with all the systematic inequalities, in addition to the lack of resources that are in our communities and in our schools, ultimately puts our students, our families in jeopardy. For me, I do this because I am my own childhood's voice. I am exactly what I needed to see in the schools that I grew up in. I grew up in inner city Buffalo, New York. most teachers, educators, staff were not Black. So moving out of Buffalo, I went to Atlanta, Georgia, where I attended an HBCU. All staff, everyone was Black. And so it just created this hope for me that I want to give back to students that are in elementary, middle, and high schools, to see someone that looks like them, that has been through and lived like them, that they too can be where I am, and that I can be that helping hand to reach back.
Davario, did I see you come off mute?
Oh yeah. I mean, I agree with everything that's been said thus far, and I don't want to be a pessimist, but I mean, the only word I can kind of say is it's sort of a crisis in a lot of ways. Whether you're looking at testing data and the achievement gap, graduation rates, dropout rates, the disciplinary actions in school, it's all indicative of a serious systemic issue that directly impacts Black and Brown children. And it doesn't even matter where you're being educated at, because there are a different set of issues in every environment, right? So for instance, you have the students that are in Title I schools. They're facing like lack of resources, uninspired, maybe underqualified or burnt out teachers, lack of interactive technology. I mean, we got these babies who were born in 2006. Where's the iPad at, and then you got kids in the quote unquote good schools. We moved to these neighborhoods with the good zip code so we can go to the good schools. And we think it's no more problems, but it is, because you have just a total lack of cultural competency across the board, from the staff, the administrators, the teachers, some of the kids. A serious problem with over-identification in special education services, erasure of their history in these classrooms and curriculums, and just a racial bias in the disciplinary actions. Daquan can't do what Trevor can do, and that's just what we're seeing with these kids. And I think all these issues is kind of my why. I grew up in Petersburg, Virginia, which is a low-income urban environment. And while I was, I guess, quote unquote, succeeding, I noticed that it was just a lack of effort and like just expectations for all of us. They just they didn't really care that much. And I just noticed that I had to get back in there and just give back, because the people who really impacted me were the teachers who challenged me, who wouldn't just let me turn in a paper and be okay with the C. And I'll say my biggest why is my first experience in a special education classroom. I was doing a demo lesson, and it was at an alternative school, and this kid had like a laser. He was just shining this laser in my eye. So I'm like, I'm trying to get this job, man. You got to chill out. He just shining a laser in my eye, right? So at the end of class, I held him back, and I was like, what was all that about? He was like, nah, I could tell you was cool. I just wanted to see how you're going to react. You coming back tomorrow, right? I was like, yeah, I'm definitely coming back. And then we dapped up, and then that was my favorite kid moving forward. And it was that moment I said, you know what? This is my calling. This is where I need to be. I can relate to these kids, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm still here 10 years later.
Brandy, I want to go to you. I see you.
I was just about to speak.
I want to go to you, and let me tell you why I want to give the audience some background too. Brandy is, and I think this is a great thing, this is her first year as a teacher in the classroom. And the good thing about this is, Brandy, your mind is fresh, right? So like some of us, we're a little older and washed, right? So even we have gotten used to some of these types of the way white supremacy shows up in education that we may not even notice, right? That we're trying to work actively against to break down these barriers. But as a new teacher, and recently coming from K through 12 and collegiate higher education, what is your thought on the state of education for Black children right now, and like what your why is?
My thought is that there's a lot that still needs to be done. And like, I just, in a sense, to the point where I'm at the point where I'm almost disgusted, because I'm so sorry. My like thing is like going off. In a sense, to the point where I'm almost like disgusted, because I just feel like, okay, so we've been oppressed for so long. Like systematic oppression has been a thing, since forever. And like, you would think at this point in 2020, we would have had like made great strides to like better our Black youth. However, like now that I like work in the schools, and like I've taken a step back from being like the student to actually being the teacher, I'm disgusted with how political the education system is, and how they basically are using our Black and brown students as pawns in a game. as opposed to it like thinking about it as if like these are these babies' lives. Like this is what they like, this is how they're going to get ahead, this is how they're going to be somebody. But instead you're playing with it like it's a game. And quite frankly, it is disgusting because it's not a game. It's actually like it's real life for a lot of these kids. Like I just sit back and think about myself, and it goes into my why. I'm gonna be very transparent. I'm a very transparent person. I grew up in foster care. So like when I tell you school was all I had, school was all I had. I knew when I went to school, I was going to get a meal. I was going to see people who cared about me. I was going to see like people who genuinely wanted me to succeed. But those people who wanted me to succeed could only do but so much because of the political aspect around education when it comes to Black and brown bodies. To the point where it has, just like I think someone said, it be your own people, it has washed down into our people. And like our people are like, they feel like they just can't, oh well, I'm gonna just do what I gotta do to get to pass this child along. I'm gonna just do what I gotta do to get my test scores or to get my numbers or to get this up. Like we have a lot of like Black school leaders, and that's great, you know, that's awesome. But like now that you're in that position, what you gonna do? That's my question. What you gonna do? You in the position to be a superintendent. What you gonna do? You in the position to run these schools and to be in charge of all of these different fundings. But it's like when we come to you asking you for these things for our students, it's just like, well, you know, we can't give you this and we can't do that. And it's just sad because it's just like, why is it still the well, you know, and giving excuses for why our students are still so far behind, like so far behind. And I would say my why is, I'm actually still at my school right now. My why is I sit and look at my KIP babies, and I went to KIP 5th through 12th grade. So I'm very well versed on like KIP and like their education aspect. And I look at them and I see how much things have changed from when I was in school, and how it has been less of a focus on I'm trying to get this baby ahead to be somebody, to more so I'm just trying to get a number for funding. And that breaks my heart because it's important that students see people that care about them. Like, I'm not even saying this because I'm still getting used to calling Ms. Patrick Brittany. So weird. But Ms. Patrick literally used to work in our office, wasn't my teacher. And I knew when I walked into that office, she genuinely cared about me as a person from the time that I met her. I was 13 years old. I'm 23 now. So that was 10 years ago. And every day since that day that she saw me, I have heard from her. She has checked in on me. She has made sure that I'm okay, been offering me a place to sleep at her house when I didn't have anywhere to go. So where are those educators? Because like our kids are going through more than just what is in the school. And that is what I feel like schools are losing sight of.
Ooh, girl. Ooh, you better preach. Now, if this is our teachers in the first year, y'all, in 10 years, oh, it's gonna be heat. We got a question, and Mr. Akamua, I would love to start with you in answering this particular question. We know that there are inequities, systemic inequities in politics, quite frankly, that we're trying to work around as educators. How do we intentionally work around some of these barriers, or abolish and recreate new systems?
Wait a minute. Okay, there we go. Thank you all for having me. We have to become creators. We have to become the creators. With me being in DC public schools for such a long, I'm a product of DC public schools. I've been here. I was born and raised in Washington, DC. And I realized like certain programs help to motivate me to become more than what I am. In the 7th grade, I did an internship at the Children's Museum. I started my own business with NIFTY, the National Foundation to Teach Entrepreneurship. So with having those types of activities, and then high school, I went to Duquesne School of the Arts, which created another venue for me to express myself creatively. So for me, what I decided to do was, I took a step back and I'm like, well, how can I help these kids? Most of the time when people see me, people see big black man. I was literally hired to be a brute initially. I was hired to be intimidating to black students, primarily black boys, be intimidating to them. No one cared about my educational background. No one cared about any of that. They were just like, oh, big black man. Oh, oh, he's Greek, so he can be overly aggressive. No, I'm a thinker. And I'm an educator. So I'm so much more. So, you know, eventually I started a program at the school I'm at right now. I started a video game club. Now, that video game club it wasn't official. It was supported by the aftercare coordinator, but it was turned down by administration. But since I had the green light from the aftercare coordinator, I was able to start this video game club to get kids involved. Get kids to understand that you don't just have to be the consumer, because a lot of our kids, that's what they're not. A lot of them aren't taught to be active listeners and active learners. They sit in front of the TV, they watch TV, they listen to music. They're not realizing the message that it's sending. With these video games, same thing. So I want our kids to eventually become those adults that are the video game developers, the video game programmers. We have to cultivate those things inside of our kids, because unfortunately, so many times, DC, when I was growing up in DC public schools, most of my teachers looked like me. That has changed. That has changed. DC public schools have changed. Most of our kids, they don't see people that look like them. And the data shows most of the time a child's success depends on how they see themselves in the world, how they see their educators, when they see educators that look like them. You know what I'm saying? And when you have people who might have a certain bias, whether knowingly or unknowingly, that have a certain bias against children of color or people of color, they're going to look at Trayshawn and look at him like, oh, well, he's just, that's just how he is, or he can't do any better. No, he can do better, and he will do better. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, or they might consider him as being bad, when in all actuality, he's dealing with a situation at home. You would know that if you ask the question, versus assuming that, oh, he's just a bad kid, or just assuming, oh, he's having a rough time, so he must have ADHD. He must have some sort of, insert disability. So I sit down there and I'm trying to create an environment that, a cultural environment, primarily African based, because I'm Nigerian, a culturally African based environment where there's a certain level of respect. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these things will be expressed through parables and, things of that nature, African based, but also, have conversations with these kids. Sit down and ask the child, how was your evening? What did you do last night? Sometimes you have to ask, what did you eat last night? What did you eat this morning? I got some snacks, this, that, and the third. You have to ask these questions. You know what I'm saying? I know that because I was once a little black boy myself. You know what I'm saying? And I, luckily enough for me, I had some teachers that asked, how are you doing? And this, that, and the third. So we have to become these creators. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be through video games. It can be through cheerleading. It can be through, some of us are Greek. So it can be through an extension of our fraternities or prospective fraternities or sororities. You know what I'm saying? We all have those programs. And the thing is, you can just look inward. What are you into? Because you might have some kids that might be into what you're into outside of education. You could bring about that change. So we have to become creative. We have to become those creators, because a lot of times that's the only thing we're going to be allowed to do.
Yes, I appreciate you bringing that forward. And I'm hearing you call out where the need for us to be creative, the need for us to tap into culture beyond the confines of what current education system has defined for us. I'm going to pass this question to someone else on the panel that may want to answer, but how do we work around these systems? How do we begin to break down these barriers in educating our children and building these spaces for our children?
So I like to think of this answer from a holistic approach. When Brandy spoke, she said, we get people of our color in these higher positions, but we're more concerned about the funding piece. which I'm not going to take that away from anyone, because that's extremely important, because without the funding, the school doesn't exist. But at the same time, there are other things that are happening that we also need to keep at the focus as well. Instead of putting all our focus on one thing, we need to develop teams within the schools to tackle certain issues that will bring everything together at one time. What Mr. Christopher just spoke about, being able to be creative in your thinking. For me, I also did programs. So programs were also helpful for me growing up. We had an Upward Bound program. I'm not sure if they had that here, but it was very helpful in giving me a vision of something that I've never seen before. It gave me a college experience when I was in 8th grade. So much so, and they paid you to come, but it was a small little stipend that it meant everything to an 8th grader at that time. So just getting these programs going in our communities. We have to stop taking our kids out of public schools, because it doesn't help. Once we're removing our children out of these schools or placing them in these better schools, it hinders our community, not just from an educational standpoint, but our property values go down. It's so much bigger than just the school on so many different levels. And so if we are not approaching it from a holistic standpoint, we're going to continue to have disparities.
That is so interesting that you say that, because I worked in public school for a while, and I'm now a director of a charter school, right? So it's like, don't take our students out of public school. I'm like, well, some of the public schools I worked at, I'm like, I took myself out of it, right? But, I just wanted to say, it's interesting that you say that, because even in my public school experience, I found myself at a crossroads where I had to continue to beg my administration for things, right? And so that's one of the reasons why I became administrator. I was tired of asking people for what I needed to create change. So I became what I needed to create change. You know what I'm saying? And so I think about two things, right? I think about one thing that Chris was talking about as far as like the representation of matter. We don't have the representation in some of those DC public schools, but I also wanted to challenge like us, right? Like I read a book, Black Students, Middle Class Teachers, by a older man's name is Kwame. I can't think of his last name, but what he talks about, or what he says, is how Black people use representation as their scapegoat to be able to reach kids. But if we essentially, we still have to check ourselves, because we essentially do more harm when we lower the expectation for kids and provide them excuses than a white person would do, right? And so when we also thinking about how do we channel that programming, things like that, I think about some of the things that we're doing at Capitol. I'm in a very unique situation too, so let me own that, okay? Let me own that. I am in a very unique situation in Baton Rouge where I am the say-so. I say we spend money on this, I say we don't spend money on that, but a lot of the money for the school has been spent on building culture. So like weekly, we have brotherhood and sisterhood circles, right? With some of our most challenging kids who are in the gang life, or who, I had a kid today where his mom, I drove him home and all of his clothes and things were outside, right? And so connecting with community partners, we were able to get him an extended stay to stay in for a couple of days, but then going and having that conversation with parents. We also require our parents to take parent university. You need to learn how to be a parent, period. You need to learn how to be a parent for your child, and this is something they have to commit to doing in order for their child to be at this school. We don't play that. Like, not only will you be a part of your child's experience, because one thing I believe in is like, school is, I am not the only person who needs to be teaching your child. Your child needs to be learning from home. And so in order to try to, I guess, sustain that, we have made parents sign a contract where you will come to community events, you will volunteer, and you have to come to parent university, period. Like, and if you can't do that, then we're going to have a conversation with you about, is this a good fit for you and your student, right? And so I think about, kind of also like maximizing student voice, right? And so one of the things that we kind of like really focus on is, I don't suspend students. When students get in trouble for a fight, they come in a panel of their peers, they state their case, and their peers decide what their consequence will be. So we and I think about like how we're using student voice to really change the narrative and change the trajectory of what we look like or how we operate in capital. And then lastly, just thinking about how we operate in our schools. I'm in a high school. Typically, when I was in high school, they tell us all the time, go to college, go to college, go to college. Nah, we're not talking about go to college. We do have college as an option. If you want to do that, we provide those pieces to you, but we also have welding. We also have computer graphics. We also have culinary arts. We also have barbershop. We built a barbershop in one of our classrooms, right? And so knowing that our kids are not, they like fast money. They're this microwavable generation. Nothing is oven baked anymore. And so if they're going to be a microwavable generation, we have to provide something that's going to sustain for them. So if you pass this class and you can get your certification, we have already connected with a community member where you automatically have a job in a barbershop. You already have a job at some type of welding company or whatever the case may be. So I think it really depends on the approach to taking students out of public schools, because I would essentially say in the model that we have, we can sometimes be better than a public school. I hired 100% Black staff. And part of my questioning is, how do you perpetuate white supremacy culture? If you cannot answer that question, or you said you did not perpetuate white supremacy culture, we did not hire you. Because you first have to look into yourself and be able to realize the things that I'm doing, and before you come in front of my kids or in front of the kids that we serve. And I'm very intentional and strategic about the type of people that we have on our campus, because you have to understand our culture. And speaking with, what Charles was saying, we try to build an African culture. Morning announcements on Wednesdays is Woke Wednesday. We talked about Mansa Musa last Wednesday, and we talked about Queen Nefertari this weekend. We hold no bars. Our kids need to know that they derive from greatness. And if we continue to instill that in their being, they continue to hear that every single day, they will continue to believe that, walk in that, and be that, right? And so I think about, I think it's a connection of the kind of charter school that you allow your kids to go to versus what that public school can do. Because I bet you I can probably put $100 on it right now. Half of the things that we're doing in our charter school right now, I would not be able to do in the public school at all. And the kids that I serve in the Baton Rouge area, I live in an area where NBA Youngboy is really big, right? People know him from the streets, and people want to be NBA Youngboy. And it's wait a minute, why do you idolize that? Mansa Musa was one of the richest men in the whole world, legit. Marcus Garvey created a whole system for Black people, legit. And so introducing them to how do we really create change for our people and for ourselves by doing things the legit way. And I wish that I was able to do those things in public school, but my administration was, no, we can't do this or we can't do that. And it's but you can, you choose not to, right? And so I also want to think about when we think about that charter school method, because a lot of people do have negative, I'm not saying you do, but some people do have negative regards in the charter school market, but it's really about how those charter schools operate and the leadership of those charter schools and what they truly and really believe in.
Mm-hmm. I want to jump in right here. First of all, yes to all of this, y'all. I'm just so honored to know each of you. I'm hearing us talk a lot about capital, right? The money and being allowed to do things and not allowed to do things. And it just really has me thinking, why are we not creating our own schools? Why are we not pooling together to found our own schools for our children? What is it that's stopping us? And I just want to ask the question now to the panel, more so about what the community can do in partnership with us as educators, because the reality is, even as a community member, you are an educator. Even as a parent, you are an educator. So what does it look like for us to come together? What are some ways that parents, educators, and community members can work together?
I mean, I think everybody on the panel kind of spoke to it, but that white supremacy thing is always at work. And I think that kind of holds a lot of us back from coming together. I was teaching in North Philly a couple years ago, and that was one of my favorite teaching experiences. And when I came back to DC, I was at a charter school. And when I came back, a lot of people were like, why you want to go teach in North Philly? And I was like, that was probably my favorite place to teach at. Why are you scared of your people is what I asked them. And I think because we spend so much time diagnosing the problems, we kind of don't get into a place of making a move. or it can be frustrating, right? So when I think about that, one of my favorite quotes from James Baldwin is, to be a Negro in this country is to be relatively conscious is to be in a rage almost all the time. So then the first thing is to control that rage so that it doesn't destroy you. And a lot of times we either let it destroy us and get locked up or do something stupid. We see these rappers and we see our kids see these people that they want to be like. So when I was in the classroom, what I would do is, okay, I'm gonna teach you the curriculum, but I'm also teach you the hidden curriculum that they're not teaching you. I'm gonna teach you that can't nobody represent you like you can represent you. Don't no piece of paper speak for you like you can go and speak for you. So I think that quote speaks loudly to us because as educators, we watch these injustices on TV and in our communities, and then we still have to come and stand in front of these kids and be their heroes. And I think that's how we do that. We be the change. We got to continue to walk that walk. And to build those safe spaces, you just got to let the kids know, like Mr. Christopher said, relate to your kids. You know, when we have dress down days, I come in with my Jordans and my Air Max and because I know they want to see that. This is what it is. When I'm teaching you the French Revolution, oh yeah, I was in Paris right here. I was at the Bastille. You want to see what that looks like? You can go there. How did you go there? Oh, my school was unaccredited, bro. My family never made more than $35,000 a year. So you can do this. And when they see that and they see you and they see yourself, it's like amazing. The kids are like, wow. And still to this day, I have those kids reach out to me, Mr. Hawkins, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to do that. I want to do this. And I'm always like, look, do what it is that you want to do. And I think we got to continue to use that rage that we feel and celebrate each other. Just like Ms. Battle was saying, we got to share resources and we got to just teach what's taught. It's too much of us trying to hoard information. Oh, I got this plug. I ain't gonna let you know. No, I got a plug. This my plug. This is my brother. He need that plug. This is my sister. She need that plug. Every other culture does it. If we start doing that, we could be unstoppable. I mean, listen to the passion on this panel. Every time somebody talks, I'm like, wow, I'm like getting chills because we care about this. You know what I mean? And as long as we care about each other and do that, there's nothing nobody from the outside can do to stop us. And I think we got to continue to do that.
I want to answer this question. And I want to say the reason why communities and like sometimes even us as Black educators can't come together or Black people with higher education can't come together is because aside from like white supremacy, but also us and like white privilege, us as Black people, once we get our degree, we have a privilege that other people don't have. And as Black people, we need to check that privilege and acknowledge that privilege when you go to work into these underserved schools. Because Ms. Battle said it, y'all always promoting college. College works for me. I'm good at it. You know, school's great. Life was great. College didn't work for my sister. And we graduated the same year, at the same time. Literally walked across the stage hand in hand. And it's because we're put in this position where it's like, all right, as a community, we're going to come together and show these kids collegiate opportunities. But my sister is great with kids. Why couldn't you show her how to get a license with early childhood education? Or why couldn't you show her how to do X, Y, and Z? College is not always a thing. And I think that's why a lot of the communities in the school have a disconnect. It's because the community feel like we can't give you what is raw and authentic to what's going on in the kids literally outside of this building, because we feel like you're just going to push college at them. You're going to push, you have to go to college or you're not going to be anything. So how do we stop it from being, you're not going to go to college and not be anything, to, hey, you can do this and still be somebody. This is why our kids idolize the rappers. This is why our kids idolize these people, because they look like them, they act like them, they talk like them. So when do we, I'm not saying lower our expectations, because definitely keep them high, but sometimes you got to meet a kid where they at to bring them up to where you need them to be. And in order for us to band together with communities, schools, educators have to be okay with meeting communities where they at. That's our problem. We never want to go walk through that bad neighborhood. We never want to go visit that child's home. We never want to go sit with that child on the stoop and ask them why they skipped school today, or why you got to carry this gun with you right now. Like, we never want to go do that, because we feel like, I noticed a lot of Black educators, even some of the people that I work with in this building, feel like they're far removed from that life. They're far removed from being in that hood. And one thing about Miss Caldwell, Brandy, whatever you want to call me, I'm not far removed from that. I know where I was. I know where I am. I know where I want to be, but I'm never going to forget where I was. It's because, and especially since I'm helping kids that are exactly in the place that I was. kids who are afraid to live life. Literally, every day that they wake up, it's a blessing. Every day that they make it home from school, it's a blessing. So like, in order for communities and us to even build these schools, we have to be okay with going back to those communities and not going back for 5 minutes, because you're not going to make a change in 5 minutes. But you got to keep going, and you got to keep knocking, literally banging until you get some answers. Because if not, then we still going to be having this conversation about what can communities and schools do to bridge the gap. That question is always asked. What can we as a community do with the schools to bridge a gap? What can we do? What can we do? And everybody says all of these great, profound things. And then a week after the conversation happened, or a year after the conversation happened, we still haven't done nothing. So, yeah.
Ooh, it's getting hot.
That was great.
I want to call. I want to call attention to one thing that you made me think about, Brandy, and it's just that I know that there are so many people on this call right now. Like, I'm looking at the number of attendees, and I'm thinking, what if every one of us walked into a neighborhood right now, or walked up to some kid's stoop right now and offered to mentor them? Like, I can literally see 8 people on this call that I know personally, 8 of them I know personally, with LLCs, with businesses right now. But what are we committing to in terms of supporting our students, supporting our youth and our community, and teaching them that there are pathways other than college, right? There truly are. And so it really made me think about the need for us all to commit to mentorship, and being authentic and transparent with the children in our communities about how we got where we were. The systems we had to navigate and didn't necessarily have to navigate in order to get where we were, because we want them to be unapologetic about their success. But I want to go ahead and move forward with one more question before we take it to the audience. So audience, attendees, if you have questions, or if you just have comments that you'd like to add, please feel free to add those in the chat. But we're talking a lot about what we do as educators and how we need to show up. The reality is, this is taxing work, right? It's taxing. I don't know any other way to explain it. And so how do we show up for our children in our communities while also taking care of ourselves, and also unlearning the white supremacist thoughts and systems that we have internalized? What does it look like for us to take care of ourselves during this time?
I think, first of all, normalizing therapy. Normalizing therapy. One of my best friends, we had a conversation about, mental health and things of that nature. And he was just like, the problem is, a lot of times, historically, therapy, in the Black community was always used to demonize us, to hold us back. You know what I'm saying? If you had to see a specialist or a doctor or whatever, you had to get any sort of help, then it was just like, oh, what's wrong with this person? You know what I'm saying? When you normalize therapy, being proactive with therapy, it makes all the difference versus, quote unquote, waiting for something to happen. You know what I'm saying? Taking different means of self-care. For me, my means of self-care was making sure I go to karaoke every Thursday night after work, making sure I hit that swimming pool. The school I'm at, it has a swimming pool at the bottom. Making sure I hit that swimming pool, not care about who was looking at me when I was hitting that swimming pool, not intimidated by anybody who was there. Making sure I did that self-care. Since COVID, I've had to do other things. For me, I've gotten more into gaming. Now I'm in school, so it's all this other stuff. But like I said, therapy. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It should be, it's a normal thing. We all need help. And if we can find somebody that specializes in that help, and, there are people for, certain backgrounds, you know what I'm saying? If you're a part of the LGBTQ community, you know what I'm saying? If you're a Black gay male, Black same gender loving male, if you feel more comfortable talking with with a woman, or if you feel more comfortable talking with somebody who's a man who's the same gender, male, you can do that. You can specifically find somebody in that you feel more comfortable holding a session with. So definitely normalizing therapy.
Thank you, Mr. Akabua. Anybody else? How do we take care of ourselves and each other during this time?
I really like what he said about just doing the things that make you happy, like going to karaoke and doing those things. Me personally, I game myself. So sometimes when I get home from work, I just tell my wife, like, look, I need like 2 hours. I just need to turn on Destiny 2 or Call of Duty and get it going right quick because I need to decompress. But also, I'm gonna be honest, I rinse the sponge every day. And if I get off at 4:30, I got a hard shutdown at 4:35. After that, it ain't no more Mr. Hawkins. I'm getting right back into chill mode. I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna relax. I'm gonna go see my dog. I might water my lawn. I'm gonna go do whatever it is that makes me happy, right? And I think it's big to rinse the sponge every day because, like Ms. Patrick said, this is very taxing work. And I know for me, I can be a coworker can send me an email and I might feel away like, hold on, who is she? Who are you talking to? You know what I mean? I know that might make me come in and have a different energy the next day. So I just kind of got to rinse that sponge and just let it go. And I got to understand that, like, you know what? Most of these things ain't on me. That's on somebody else. And I can't let somebody else's energy take over mine, right? And I live by this quote that my dad told me: you live your life and you work your job. You do not live your job. And every moment is a teaching moment in some way. But after I'm off the clock, like I said, I shut down. And I understand that I got to take care of myself because I can only be as good for my staff, for my team, for my kids, as I take care of myself. And another thing that we need to normalize outside of therapy is taking your days off. Sometimes you take a day off and someone's asking what's going on, or are you sick? No, I just wanted to sit at home and watch Goodfellas and not talk to nobody today, so I took off. Normalize taking off. Normalize, this right here is therapy for me. Normalize taking off and normalize not having to give nobody no excuse for anything. Oh, you're not gonna make it tonight? Nah, why? I'm not making it. That's it. I don't owe you nothing. I'm gonna take this time for myself, and that's what we need to do more of. And I think that's how you continue to keep yourself up and in high energy.
For me, y'all, I've been working for how many? Like 13 weeks, maybe. Y'all, I'm tired. When I say, like, I'm still at the school, like I'm still here, like I'm tired, and I love my job. I do, I promise you. But that's when I leave, and I feel that, like, I'm still getting used to being called Miss Caldwell. It's so weird to me. So when I leave, like, I even tell my coworkers, once we step out of this door at 4:30, please don't call me Caldwell. My name is Brandy, because I have to detach myself sometimes from my job, because like I understand why teachers get burned out now. Like, I understand, especially teachers that work at charter schools with these long days and long hours. I understand why they get burnt out, and I'm still trying to find like a happy medium with like self-care, because like it is my first year, so they got me doing a lot, and then I'm also in grad school, so it's a lot, and then I have like a RA, a resident like mentor or whatever, and like she lives and breathes her job 7 days a week all day, and I don't. So like I'm trying to balance that by like, because sometimes I have to ignore her and I feel really bad for ignoring her. Had to have a conversation with her today about, like, when I'm not here, I'm not here. After 7 o'clock, please don't text me about work. I don't have nothing for you. Saturday and Sunday is my day. I'm sorry that you wait until Sunday to do your work. I don't know what to tell you. So it's me trying to like find a balance without sounding rude or without sounding, I think that's my question to y'all. How do I find a balance without coming off as rude or just like mean? Like, and it's not intentional. It's literally just like I'm tired. I'm literally tired. And then like also it's my first year of teaching, so like I'm not getting paid that much. So I do have another job outside of this. So I'm literally tired. And I'm just like, and I tell them that, but there's no end. It never ends. I get emails at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night. I'm confused.
I mean, I'm gonna just speak to your answer about how do you say that. I'm gonna be honest with you. As a Black person in education, the thing that we need the most is the thing that they're gonna judge us for, and that's our passion. So me, I might say something and somebody's gonna take it the wrong way, and you just say it. Just say what you need to say. Be professional, but be poignant. And however someone feels about it, that's just how they got to feel about it. Because again, you can be, as a Black person, your passion is going to make some people scared. They're going to be angry. They're going to be worried. That ain't got nothing to do with you. You get off what you got to get off, and that's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Devario. Like, one of the things that I'm seeing Kendra in here, we and her are like, we're kindred spirits through this internet thing, right? This virtual learning. But I think one of the things is like, you really have to set boundaries for yourself, not just with work, but your personal life as well. And it's like you said, like they said, normalize saying no. At the end of the day, it was a text I read, the 4 agreements. Don't take anything personal, the second agreement. If somebody takes something personal that you say, or you're trying to set a boundary for yourself, that is on them. You know, that is their reality, you know? And so just set a boundary, you know, set a boundary for yourself. I get texts and emails after hours. I put my phone on silent too. And I made a commitment to myself that when I get off work at 2:35 and I come in this house, I am not doing anything for my job. It's not happening. So you can call me, you can text me, but you're going to get denied, blocked. Okay, period.
And that's the thing though, it's so hard.
I have to do that because if I don't, and I set this expectation that it's okay for you to continue to contact me after hours, you will continue to do it, and I will essentially have issues. I need to protect myself. I have a tattoo on my leg that says protect your peace at all costs. And so that means not answering that phone. That means setting that boundary, you know, and peace to you, because at the end of the day, you're in grad school as well. So I know it's like double the stress. I was in grad school a couple of years ago when I was teaching. And so, you know, detaching yourself from those things. And like, just to go back to the question of like, how do we find wellness? I'm a gym rat. Like, I love being in the gym. You know, I love going to the gym. I mean, sometimes I don't like it, but I love going to the gym. I love, you know, being able to control that part of myself. I love meditating. So I do meditate a lot. And I love nature. So I typically try to go out. I like to hike. So I typically drive to Mississippi or something like that and take a hike and do that. And, you know, and one of the things that I'm working on, like a goal for myself, I'm in the process of like writing my first book, right? And so that allows me to mentally dump, right? Because when we think about how do we have self-care, we got to think about like that physical piece, that emotional piece, and that mental piece, you know, mentally dump myself in something that I love and that's my passion. But you got to normalize saying no. And like Chris said, if they get, Devario said they get mad, that's on them.
That's what I'm learning. I'm learning it. It's hard. Like, I've been tasked to make 50 Halloween candy bags. They told me today, and they need them for tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. Lucky I love the kids. But it's hard to say no because it's like, I love the kids. But it's also just like, girl, I'm tired. I don't want to do that. I want to go home and not do nothing and not run to no stores. But I'm learning. So I appreciate the advice.
So yeah, people are definitely only going to do what you allow them to do. Like, you got to teach people how to treat you at the end of the day. And I think that our people as a whole, we have a difficulty saying no because of some underlying issues that may be there. So just also taking some time to yourself to understand why you feel bad saying no and taking care of yourself and prioritizing yourself. A lot of times, people in education, we're givers. And so it's our nature to always want to help. A lot of times it comes from things in our childhoods or things, you know, that have happened to us that we're like, okay, superhero, we're here to save the day. But you have to learn to say no. You have to understand that setting boundaries and choosing to prioritize yourself does not make you selfish. That's the key there. You are not selfish when you prioritize yourself.
Absolutely. And that's another stem of white supremacy in a way too, because America and capitalistic society has so many of us believing that relaxation and just giving yourself time is a luxury only reserved for rich people. And that is a lie. The people who make the most money do the least work. So again, take your time, relax yourself, because you can only be as strong as you can be. There's been times where I had these meetings. There was going to be an advocate there. It's going to be a lawyer there. I might have had an observation. I took off. Okay, I'll be there because it'll happen. You'll observe me another time. I'll be Mr. Hawkins another time. So again, yeah, just be confident in that, because relaxation is not something only reserved for rich people or wealthy people. We all need to have a time to sit back and relax and not have no cares.
I want to honor people's time. Y'all, this is so good. It makes me feel like we need a part 2. Like, this is like teacher therapy for me. I want to honor people's time, and so I want to get ready for us to go ahead and close out. But I just want to ask one question. If you guys could tell the community to do one thing tomorrow in support of Black children, what would that just one thing be? If you could just tell us in like less than 10 seconds each. If you could tell the community, we need you to do one thing tomorrow, starting tomorrow, what would that be?
Please respect these babies as people. Respect these babies as people, because they are people, and they will one day be adults. They will one day take the torch. To respect them.
Thank you.
I would say be present. Don't just show up. Be actively engaged, listen, and work as a village.
I would take a note out of the book that Miss Patrick did for me when I first met her. Genuinely ask them, how are you? And like, she asked me, she was like, how are you? And I was like, oh, I'm good. She was like, no, but like, how are you? Like, how are you? Literally. Don't give me the cookie cutter version. Like, how are you? I think that's important, because from that one conversation, you don't know what type of relationship it could build. Look, 10 years later.
Oh, girl, you're gonna make me cry. Okay.
I would say have compassion.
Yeah, I mean, I think they took all the great ones. I would say just go out of your way to build bonds and share, like I said, share resources with people, man. Be non-judgmental and share resources. The biggest thing I see is just people are afraid to ask questions because of how you treat people when you ask a question. We need to just share resources and just, like you said, how are you? Don't talk at me, talk to me. Let me know how you feeling, because I care, you know what I mean?
Y'all, and I would say work together with your community. Like, I want to just say I'm so honored that you guys have given your time today. I'm so honored to know each of you, just truly. I feel so fortunate. I see Miss Battle put her contact information. And if any of the attendees are interested in getting in contact with any specific panelists, just put it in the chat, and I'm happy to work with them and work with you to facilitate their contact information. I thank you guys. There will definitely be a part 2 at some point. But for the time being, please take care of yourself, take care of one another, and let's take care of our babies. We're going to keep taking it one step at a time, y'all. So I love each of you guys, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
I was just about to say, I have to slide out. They're kicking me out the building.
Bye. Thanks, friend.
Peace to you guys.
It was nice meeting all of y'all.
Yes.
I hope to see y'all in person one day.
Pleasure to meet you all.